The economic freedom fighters are in the news again, and there is speculation reporting around Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And this story has been covered in two publications. It's been covered in City Press and it's been covered in Sunday World. And when you have two Sunday publications publishing a story, the initial assumption is that this story is locked in, it has conclusive evidence, it is based on fact, on substance, and many people started having speculation and discussion on the story on Saturday because the Sunday papers put their information about what's going to be in the headlines on Saturday, and they put it on the streets as well, on those banners that you see on the side of the road. So many people have already weighed in without reading the story, without checking for the probity of this particular story. But here's what the story is about, here's what the sources indicate, and here is where this type of stuff stands. It's right now not a conclusive story, I don't want to lie. The gist of the story is that the EFF has allegedly barred the prominent member of parliament and former spokesperson Mbuyiseni Ndlozi from the elective conference, which is scheduled to take place in Nasrec in December. Ndlozi has allegedly been banned from attending all EFF political activities. These include the meetings of the party's War Council, which meets weekly, as well as its Central Command team, which met on Friday. Ndlozi is a member of both of these entities, and apparently he wasn't at the meetings. So his absence from the meetings then led to people saying he's been banned, right? The evidence that has been provided is in part circumstantial and in part based on anonymous inside sources. These undisclosed sources say that the Central Command team delivered the news to Ndlozi that he's not going to be allowed to go to the conference. But as I said, the evidence is circumstantial. City Press goes on these same anonymous sources, but also then they rely on anonymous accounts on Twitter for their reporting. They cite 2 or 3 Twitter accounts saying, oh, this Twitter account said this, that Twitter account said this. Your Twitter accounts are not credible sources of journalism. There are different types of evidence. So circumstantial evidence is evidence which is not documentary in nature, but allows you to make an analysis and say, okay, this particular set of facts is available for us to ascertain and assess, and it's not directly indicating what we want to conclude, but it does indicate 1 or 2 things. So if Ndlozi didn't attend a meeting, that is circumstantial. Is he banned? Is he sick? Is he not, mental health? You never know. You never know. But it's circumstantial. You can make some kind of inferences from that. Those inferences would still need to be concluded upon. They would still need to be assessed in and of themselves. Then you have hearsay evidence where I see something and I tell you what I saw, and then you go tell another person, so you become a second party. That is hearsay evidence. Hearsay evidence is inadmissible generally in court systems because you could be making it up, right? I was told by X and Y is not necessarily, but this type of evidence that is being relied on, right? Which is just what has been said by anonymous Twitter accounts. This is, I don't think, is supposed to be covered by media publications, right? What anonymous Twitter accounts say. There's no methodology to inspect their versions because they're anonymous. I mean, think about it. It could be Floyd Shivambu tweeting. It may even be Cyril Ramaphosa on a burner account. We have no way of knowing who's behind that account. It may be a Nyaupe boy in rehab who is bored, or even the next Thabo Bester there in prison tweeting, saying, let me just make gag here. We have no way of knowing who is behind an anonymous Twitter account. It could be me. I could be the one who tweeted that stuff. You have no way of knowing. So my point is, I don't think that media publications, which are news publications, should put in their Sunday papers this type of contribution or analysis, the stuff that comes from, I don't think that they should put it in. Okay, so that is one of the things that I think needs to be discussed, just this issue of sources. Sunday World did get a hold of Leanne Matthews, and she's the national spokesperson of the EFF. But according to them, she could not confirm nor deny that Ndlozi had been placed on leave of absence. Apparently, she was asking Sunday World, who told you this stuff? She wasn't interested in giving them a version, right? She confirmed, however, that Ndlozi had not attended the War Council and the Central Command team meetings this week. And then she said, there are a lot of people who didn't attend the CCT and the War Council. Must I send you the list? We do not tell the news that this person was not there and what their reasons were. She was asked if Ndlozi will be attending Parliament next week, and she responded, I don't know. There are probably a lot of people who will not be in Parliament next week. About the National Elective Conference, she said Ndlozi might not attend, which also would not be unusual, according to her. I think it would be unusual if he didn't attend the conference. It would definitely feed speculation if he didn't attend the conference. But if he doesn't attend, that's a different thing. But she said she wasn't going to confirm or deny, and then she said it's not unusual. She said he's not the only one who will probably send an apology. People send apologies all the time, including myself. I don't know about that because it's conference. It's an elective conference. It's not like a regular meeting. So sending an apology for conference is a totally different thing than actually, sending an apology for a CCT meeting or anything to that effect. So I don't know about all of that. Leanne Matthews, I think that we need to get more information from you at a later stage. So as things stand right now, the City Press story and the Sunday World story are largely based on unverified information, social media gossip, but their headlines are authoritative. If you just read the headline, EFF bars Ndlozi from attending conference, you're like, yo, Ndlozi's out. This thing, this guy is out. Why are they disrespecting Ndlozi like this, etc., etc., etc. Maybe they've banned him, but right now it's not definitive. To come with an authoritative headline of this nature on inconclusive information, for me, is problematic. You can't do that. You can't actually say that, you know for sure that something is done and then provide inconclusive evidence. One of the things I want to point out is that 2 weeks or so ago, the Sunday World published a story that Zuma's closest advisors had advised him not to appoint Floyd Shivambu as the Secretary General of the MK Party. And then in the evening, we got announcements that Floyd Shivambu was now the Secretary General of the MK Party. I'm sorry, that to me was a little bit abusive because the whole indication, and direction was that, look, it's not likely to happen that they'll put Floyd in such a powerful position. Chigi, Oliver Jacob Zuma, Kwazam Konto, the man is in. All I'm trying to say is that since that time, I'm taking some of these stories with a pinch of salt, and I think you should take them with a pinch of salt as well, right? Stories of this nature, can be influenced by bad inside sources, people playing the game through media. They may have been misinformed, Sunday World. If you get a scoop of that magnitude, though, and your sources were wrong or they misinformed you or they were playing the game through you, we have to take your next scoop with a pinch of salt. If you give me one scoop of ice cream, say it's vanilla and it's chocolate, the next time you give me another chocolate, says I'm going to be like, ooh. Now I don't know. Now I have to be circumspect about your reporting a little bit. Not to say that they didn't do their due diligence, but if a source is lying, a source is lying. And that's part of journalism. But if you put your brand on the line, the public may be skeptical the next time. So these inside sources, anonymous sources, they can be valuable at different times and can really give you insight. But one of the times when they are most problematic and most unreliable is during a leadership conference or just prior to a leadership conference, because they have a perverse incentive. They themselves are politicians, they are players, they are people who are trying to win get positions, advance their own positions. They have rivals within the organization, enemies within the organization. They are also driven by, various factors that you may not be aware of. Some of them are playing two sides of the game. Maybe some of them, are MK supporters within you never know. You never know. And going to an elective conference, there's a lot of turbulence on that bus. There's a lot of movement because you don't know. And this is what makes inside sources at this particular time, 2 or so weeks away from the EFF conference, not the most reliable source of information, if I'm honest. I suspect that this article, particularly the Sunday World one, was in part driven by a desire to make a case against Goodrich Gadi. Because this is what the EFF insider who spoke to them said. Goodrich lacks charisma and can't articulate the EFF's policy position with coherence and in depth. Ndlozi is an orator, an intellectual machine, and a magnet to attract young and intellectual votes. That sounds a little bit like Floyd, though. Doesn't that sound like Floyd? Let me read it again. Goodrich lacks charisma and can't articulate EFF's policy position with coherence and in depth. Ndlozi is an orator, an intellectual machine, and a magnet to attract young and intellectual votes. Whose voice is that? That sounds like Floyd. Just a little bit. Floyd, is that you? Are you a EFF inside source? Look. As I've said, this story, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. Very authoritative, but not so definitive. Let me just check something. Something just came in here. I want to make sure it's not relevant to this. Okay, no. It's someone else just telling me the same thing about the story. Okay. Right, so it's not going to change the video. I thought it would change the video, so I went rush to check. Lina kinali the sauces, Buffett. Kinali the sauces, tomato sauces, mayonnaise sauces, sweet chili sauces, peri, Nando's sauces. I sometimes enjoy myself when I make these videos because life is short, Gotta have fun. Right, here are my landing remarks on this story. The evidence provided for this story is inconclusive and speculative, especially considering how significant and authoritative the headlines were. That's I think, something that we have to say. If they had produced a letter actually saying that he's banned or barred from attending the conference, that would have been solid evidence. If they had produced a statement from Ndlozi himself, that would have also been sufficient. But as things stand, they didn't provide any evidence which I would have taken as being definitive or conclusive evidence that we could really rely upon to say this reporting is accurate, true, and he has been barred. These newspapers have access to these politicians and even the leaders of these political parties. Another thing that I think is important to mention here is that News 24 is owned by Naspers. Naspers donated to two political parties in the 2023-2024 election cycle. They donated to the ANC and they donated to the Democratic Alliance. Therefore, Naspers has political interest in this particular story in and of themselves. Media 24 is also one of the companies that drove the narrative through News 24 of the markets, and the DA and ANC coalition is the best coalition. They pushed a particular narrative, which not only do they give money to these two entities, they also promoted and pushed for a DA and ANC coalition, which therefore means that they have a position of rivalry towards the EFF and hostility towards the EFF, which we must take into account when doing source analysis, when doing bias analysis or anything to that effect, right? The other media company that has pushed a lot of GNU content is ENCA. For a very long period of time, and even this was raised by Floyd Shivambu himself. He said, Rupert owns ENCA, you never see MK, etc., etc. That has changed on ENCA. That has changed recently, right? If you remember, ENCA would not and did not show the Jacob Zuma and JJ Tabane interview. Before the elections, they said, no, we're going to violate some code, even though other interviews, like what Thabo Mbeki's interview, was aired on SABC at the same time. So even after the elections, they didn't show us that interview. However, they have recently started to platform MK leaders since the Floyd Shivambu and Advocate Dalimpofu departures from the EFF. So the ENCA, which has been hostile to the EFF all this time, has now all of a sudden started putting MK leaders on their platform to discuss the future of MK, the departures, all of that. This makes me skeptical of their incentives and their agenda, both News 24 and ENCA. Can I give a theory that we can consider, a hypothesis? Because this is the dissection. We have to, come up with a hypothesis, see if that hypothesis is through experimentation and observation. Can I give a theory of why ENCA and Media 24 would push for the failure of the EFF? I think it has to do a lot with age. Julius Malema is 43 years old. Jacob Zuma is 82 years old, right? So he's almost double the age of Julius Malema. The mainstream media may be hoping that Jacob Zuma will not make it past 2 election cycles and that the MK party will collapse without him. They are hoping perhaps that his brand is going to carry the organization. Or maybe they're hoping that age will catch up with him so that even if he's alive, he's not going to be able to have his sharp mental acuities and maintain all of the complexity required to run a political organization at that level. You know, we saw Joe Biden struggling with debate, and that ultimately led to his demise. As people get older, you know, they don't always operate at 100%. Some people do, some people don't. But that could be part of the calculation. The long-term enemy of the mining bosses and the commercial farming bosses has been, and I think still is, the EFF, because they want to nationalize mines. They want to nationalize land. They want to change the mandate of the Reserve Bank, nationalize the Reserve Bank. That also affects a lot of people in the JSE, a lot of people within the banking sector. Rupert, for example, has a lot of interest in the banking sector. These are people who are concerned, because last year when the EFF had that event at the FNB Stadium, with 100,000 people in the venue and the stadium still being overpacked outside, Julius Malema coming up on that platform, that freaked them out. That really freaked out Stellenbosch, and they were concerned. The oligarchs who control ShopRite, FNB, Mediclinic, Discovery, these few men we're also watching TV saying, geez, this is hectic. 10 years and they have 100,000. Then the election happened. MK was a tsunami. They lost 300,000 votes, mostly in KZN. That's where the EFF encountered the biggest losses. I think it's partly because Floyd Shivambu was the organizer in KZN. And I mean, the mathematics is mathematicking, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, if Floyd is running KZN, joins MK, you lose 300,000 votes. Floyd wasn't working in KZN, I don't think. I think he was chilling. Anyway, point I'm trying to make is that the EFF is still sitting on 1.5 million supporters. That's a significant number. You can't ignore that. And they've been very well organized. In spite of all of this noise and chaos, most of which has been amplified by media, the support and the structures of the EFF are very disciplined, organized. Their building is a professional building. Malema has been very focused on professionalization of his entity, right? He has been very focused on that. And if you've paid attention to the EFF, you will have seen that, no, it's a well-ordered, well-structured entity, procedural, which goes to elective conferences, all of these things that they do. That could worry oligarchs who hear that guy talking about he wants to dismantle and nationalize. Now, personally, I'm not a socialist. I'm a fair market capitalist. I also view the oligarchs as being a problem because they concentrate a lot of their wealth in their hands, extract a lot of value from the country. And I think that there needs to be more competition, more players, more funding given to small businesses so that they can compete fairly and be part of fair market capitalism, not this oligarch capitalism which is happening, right? So I don't necessarily agree with all of the EFF policies and ideas, but I understand why oligarchs would be very concerned about the EFF. The other thing that would make them very concerned about the EFF, right, is that the EFF is winning SRC elections across the country. They're winning them at places like WITS, like UCT, University of Johannesburg, University of Pretoria. These are the Ivy League universities in South Africa. The EFF doesn't win every year. in all of these universities. Don't get the wrong message from what I'm saying. But they win often. Sihle Lonzi, Vuyani Pambo, Naledi Chirwa, Sinao Tambo. These are all leaders who have emerged from these university structures. So in a sense, if I'm an oligarch who owns ENCA or Media 24, I'm seeing EFF winning the youth, the future. And I know that sooner or later, the ANC support base, which supports them based on historical affiliations, is not going to be around. The life expectancy in South Africa is about 62. The median age is 28. So the next generation of black intellectuals, academics, middle class supports EFF. They do. That's what the university data is showing. 1.5 million. They're staying strong in that 1.5 million. I'd be worried if I was an oligarch, because then I'm going to lose the future. So best opportunity that they have right now, in my opinion, is a theory. It's a hypothesis, meaning that we can debate it, we can prove, disprove, offer counter arguments in the comments. Let's have a conversation. I think that they're hoping that they can take Malema out through this moment, and then that Jacob Zuma time will catch up with him. And if that happens, then the DA and ANC have a free lane to move. You can continue with these type of coalitions, continue with the privatization of water, privatization of ESCOM, cashless society, all of these things which the markets are pushing for robustly. So look, if I was them, I would be covering the story and pushing this and trying to manufacture consent. Manufacturing consent, very important book. We must do the book club, guys. If you want to do the book club, let me know. By Edward S. Herman and Noam Chomsky. This book speaks about the propaganda model of mainstream media. When you see something in mainstream media, one Sunday newspaper, two Sunday newspapers, they are trying to manufacture the consent. They are trying to get you to believe their version, their story, even though the story has no real documentary evidence backing it up, even though the story is relying on undisclosed sources, even though they didn't listen or try to reach out to Ndlozi himself. Manufacturing, but they are manufacturing the consent, perhaps. It's a theory. There's another theory, another hypothesis, and this one comes from the art of war. Sun Tzu says in the art of war, right? What does the man say? He says, in the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter it is not so good. So it is better to capture an army than to destroy it. To capture a regiment, a detachment, or company entire than to destroy them. Sun Tzu, what are you trying to Sun Tzu here? Art of War, you need to get yourself this book also. It's a very interesting book that you must be aware of in life, because we're all playing some version of a game of chess, and you need to be familiar with how the game of chess is played in different areas. Business strategists read this book, political strategists read this book. We know Jacob Zuma is the chess player. According to Thabo Mbeki, he was giving him flames there, showing him flames, playing chess with him. So my first hypothesis is this could be just the mainstream media taking advantage of an opportunity to really drive through the destruction or division of the EFF. Divide and conquer is a historic methodology used to perpetuate colonialism in Africa. So that could be something that could be used. The other one, though, is that this could be Jacob Zuma's own game that is at play here. The MK has 2.3 million votes. To be specific, they have 2,344,291 votes. The EFF has 1.5 million votes. To be specific, they have 1,529,914 votes from the last election. Together, they have 3.8 million votes. This is even more than the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance in the last election got 3,506,000 votes, 855. That's what they got. So the fastest way for MK to grow from a Zuma perspective could be to absorb the EFF votes. That would prove momentum of the party and attract more voters from the ANC. Jacob Zuma is chasing time. Time is chasing him. Father Time Nobody lives to 200. So let's say you've got till 100. Let's say you've got till 100. You've got 2029, and you've got then the next one being 2034. These are the next two elections that are big for you and local government. So you have to create momentum, and you have to do it fast. This is why he could be pushing for, let's absorb the EFF. Best way to do that, isolate Malema. Because if Malema, even if he's not really isolated in the real sense of the word, if the public knows these big names, Floyd Shivambu, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, Advocate Dalimpofu, and you remove them from around him. Obviously, he sent some people into the party, Mzwane Lemani, Advocate Busiwe Mkhwebane. These ones withdrew, but their presence it's like if I send people, like it's not a real thing, right? In the sense of isolating Malema. But some of the generals who have been seen around Malema for a very long period of time, Ndlozi, Advocate Dalimpofu, as well as Floyd Shivambu. Floyd is out. Advocate Dalimpofu is out. Then you now have as a big name. They're not the only names though, but sometimes people ignore all of the women who've been around Malema who are still there, and they focus on these men, these big brands, so to speak. But my point is that if you create an impression, and perception can be reality in war, perception can be reality. Create an impression that Malema is alone, you could win. You could win. Purely based on that, and then collapse the organization and absorb the organization. Perhaps this is what is being done here. And we can't forget that Floyd Shivambu did say that Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is like a brother to him, and they've been friends for decades, one of the closest people to him. But Floyd has also called Julius Malema a brother to him. You know, one thing in life that I don't think you want to do right now is to be called a brother by Floyd. Because Floyd will call you a brother. You're like, no, this is my brother. I'll fight for this guy. Let me tell you something. This is not politics. This is brotherhood. I'll bury this guy. Then you're like, whoa, you bury me? What do you mean by that? Because you just left the... I'm just playing. But please, guys, if Floyd says he's my brother, no, I don't know that guy. He's not my brother. He's not my buddy. I don't want to be called a brother by Floyd Shivambu. I mean, it's with brothers like these, who needs Daily Maverick and Paulie Van Vick, right? Who needs VBS? Your brother's gonna... Okay, guys. I don't know. What do you think about the story? Let's have a conversation in the comments. Till the next one.